So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today, almost exactly 14 years ago, I started taking this Ranchero apart, cut out about 50% of it, and then proceeded to put it all back together. And I did it in 9 months. 9 months. Before I could do anything, I had to find a garage to put my 65 Falcon two-door wagon in, somewhere secure for the insurance. I found a storage garage running a 4-month special for new clients. So I was hoping I could get the Ranchero done in 4 months. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. As you'll see, if you follow the story all the way through to 2025, this initial 9-month build was just the first of many for this Ranchero. I'll be starting again at the beginning here, just in case people missed my last video. I've had a couple people ask, how did this thing save my life? As I've already said, it was a work-related thing. I think I'll go into greater detail maybe when I do my autobiography in my second channel. Probably will do something like that. The bottom line is this Ranchero really did play its part as an inanimate object in keeping my mind from going to the dark side of the force. So suffice it to say, I'm still here, still part of the resistance. Before we get into the meat and the potatoes of this build, I do want to offer up a public service announcement, I guess. In my nearly 65 years on this planet, I've helped so many people try to restart stalled projects. You know, some of them I actually finished for them. A couple, at least, that I can think of off the top of my head. You know, but almost in every case, you know, they had interest. You know, it's hot and heavy at the beginning. As the months go flying by, and they do fly by, you may find yourself questioning your insanity at some point. You know, ask me how I know. So when you're looking to start a project, be sure to count the cost. I mean, I'm not talking just money here. I mean, yeah, money plays a role in it, but try looking into the future. You know, be prepared for what might come, and you know, try to have a plan. You know, you don't want something that's just going to sit for 15 years. You know, go save it from someplace and then turn around and let it sit languishing for, you know, another lifetime in your possession. Anyway, that's kind of all I really have to say about that. Is just be prepared about, you know, what doing a big project is actually going to take. You know, it just does, you know, do you have the skills for it? All of that. For me, as you'll see, it was never for a lack of interest. I do all of that with everything. My problem back then, in addition to the wagon relocation stuff, which was kind of a first, it wasn't really. I mean, I did a Mustang for another guy that I had to put the wagon somewhere different. But, you know, I mean, that was kind of a deal. But, you know, the biggest deal for me was that both of the driveways into my old northern estate, where I used to live, both driveways were like 10% grades. I didn't have a tow roller. I couldn't push that thing up a hill. It you know, it was my reality, and it completely changed how I planned for builds. The before, the during, the after. I mean, everything really kind of hinged upon, well, is the car running? Can I get it up the hill? Do I have a place to store it? Having a running and driving car was always preferable to figuring out how to push a dead car up a hill. It was, I'm sure, responsible for the brain fart that I had mentioned on a previous video, where I thought it was a good idea to part out that other Ranchero. I mean, truth is, I could have probably left it alone sitting over at Steve's house for, a few months. I'm sure he would have been fine. He had plenty of room. But, as always, hindsight is 2020. And I didn't see a way at that point in time other than just to leave it over there. And I would have probably then rented a trailer and, you know, hauled it back had I known what this thing was going to look like. But anyway, enough of the jibber jabber. Enjoy the first part of this epic tale, and we'll get a ways into it. But I'm gonna have to probably break it up into about 4 or 5 segments. So this is technically part 2, but this is really part 1 of the, entire build. So you see it start from the beginning and go to the end. So enjoy. After all the drama of relocating the wagon and praying the clutch and the Ranchero survived making the grade, I finally got the Ranchero up into the garage around 5 o'clock today. I then spent a couple hours pulling out the glass, the headliner, the grill, and the front bumper before finally calling it quits for the day. Ain't no turning back now. My buddy Gene came by this morning, and we started off pulling the hood, the fenders, the doors, along with the seat. We also started pulling stuff apart from down below, first yanking out the drive shaft and then the puny 6-cylinder rear end. I have an 8-inch rear end for this, a V8 5-lug version, and all the steering components out of a 65 Falcon my buddy Mark had. I also snagged myself up a set of wheels and tires off that car. This is going to be a V8 suspension Falcon from the very get-go, even though it's going to have a 6-cylinder in the beginning. Already, I'm beginning to see some of the history unfold on this Ranchero, archaeology stuff and all of that. There have been some pretty wacky repairs done on this thing. The passenger side cowl was opened up like a tuna can and then closed back up and sealed with caulk. The driver's side is still chock full of leaves and who knows what else, but I'll open up that side soon enough. It's not looking good so far. At this point, I've decided I'm stripping this Ranchero of every last screw, nut, and bolt. I honestly can't find one good thing worth keeping so far. It's funny, when you recall someone saying, I'd have had no problem driving this car to New York if I had to. I'll be likely drilling out 3,000 spot welds before driving it 3,000 miles across the country. I've been pushing Gene pretty hard, and it's only day 2. Today he is willing to crawl down under and has been getting his isometric exercises reefing on the fused shackle bolts. He's doing that while I'm wresting out the old gas tank. Of course, once the gas tank is out, I can use the gas axe on the stuff that Gene can't loosen or break. Gene stopped by yet again this evening after work. He might be actually having fun. I can't quite tell yet. He had just enough time available to help me pull the little Dagenham 4-speed out from underneath this rust bucket. It's the only 4-speed Ford used behind the 6-cylinder cars, and it originated in England for the Ford Cortina. Not known as a very reliable transmission, but it'll get gone through later on in this build. I plan on using it. After Gene left, I found some more rusty bolts and nuts, this time on the brake master and the pedal support bracket. With that out came the master cylinder and the pedal assembly. As expected, all the bolts have just ripped the captured nuts completely apart. That's fine, I have vice grips. But by the end of the day, I had the dash completely stripped down to everything. I mean, there is nothing left on it. The more I can see on this thing, the more the cowl is exposed. This thing is looking way worse than I'd hoped. I guess I was correct when I named this thread on the club forum. Call me crazy, Rancheros again. This is my second Ranchero. The first one was a 64. It was a basket case too, but it was in better shape than this one. But I had to let it go. I didn't have the space to work on it back then, and it just got too deep. So it had to go. But I'm committed to building this one for sure, or I'll be committed. I pulled the engine out last night all by myself, but had to lift it over the passenger side fender apron. That was fun. I didn't think that part through. There's no way to move the car now, so to get the hoist in the front of the car was kind of impossible. So I had no choice but to bring it over the edge. I was a bit bummed to smell gas fumes today and found out that the gas tank was leaking from a little hole in it. It's not a big one, but it might be easy to fix. We'll see. But outside it goes for now. Gene and I took a drive out to the Arlington Pick and Pull today. We went scouting for a pair of red bucket seats. That's the color I'm going with on the interior. I picked these up for $25 a piece. Not bad. They came out of an 80s Escort. There's no signs of wear, just a little dirty. I don't like the 80s headrests, but the rest is going to clean up nicely for a budget build. Maybe I'll find some original bucket seats for it someday. I dove in head first and started hacking out the floor today. Thankfully, I didn't have to drill a single spot weld. I found if I just slice off the bigger rusty parts and then carefully sliced between each spot weld with my cutoff wheel, I could grab the cut metal edge with a pair of channel locks and peel each piece off the spot weld. They came right off, leaving minimal evidence of a spot weld. Seems to work quite well when the stuff you're removing is almost non-existent. Sadly, as I worked my way toward the back of the truck, I realized how bad the rear driver's side torque box is, pretty much non-existent too. So I'll have to fabricate a new plate for that. Thankfully, I grabbed some of the sheet metal we cut off the better Ranchero before we left swim that night. I got to patch the transition between the bed and the cab, and I used the patch panel to help me decide where to cut things. I think it's time to hook my peepers on the bow cowl. Is there any way to fix this without drilling 3,000 spot welds? Can I fix all of this as one piece? Is there any hope for me? Nope, not today. I originally thought I'd hold off working on the cowl until the floor got replaced, but until those patch panels arrived, I might as well satisfy my curiosity, and it's getting the best of me. The donor cowl, by comparison, is looking pretty good right now. And with every passing minute, I am kicking myself harder and harder for cutting up the wrong car. That Ranchero, the other Ranchero, could have been a 4-month build. Easy. Hindsight is always 20/20. Well, here we are. Although I've dreaded ever doing this, after having read quite a few horror stories about it, I started drilling the 300,000 spot welds on the donor cowl and dash. I'm pretty sure I'm heading to that point. Gene came by today, so I sicked him on cutting the old cowl vent cover off. Have at it, Gene. There was notable damage Kenny and I saw on the dash the night we drove this Ranchero back from Squim. Though I didn't know it then, it foretold the evidence I'm showing you here of a collision of some sort that hit the upper passenger door. Who knows what hit it? Maybe that's when they opened the cowl? Who knows? There are signs of lots of funky repair attempts on this thing. I've done a little work on it since the picture was taken, so I think it's in better shape now. Of course, y'all know, if you're paying attention, that there's no truth in that, considering what I did in 2025 to fix it again. Well, here we are. Welcome to day 20. I can't believe I've been at this for 20 days already. My body says, it's been more like a year, hasn't it? It feels like it's been a year. I've carefully removed the old dash and lower cowl pan, and then I welded in the new one. If you look close at this picture, you'll see I cut down into the firewall a couple of inches to overlap the firewall with the new part of the cowl. I didn't have a full firewall section from either car, so I considered it the best to collapse the top of the firewall just a bit to get the new cowl, to slip over the top of it. It's all lined up, so I guess I'm impressed with myself. I used existing holes in the firewall to align it with existing holes in the new firewall section. This made sure everything was the original height all the way around. Here's a picture of the pile of rust bunnies that came out from the new cow once I got that opened up and spread apart. This is just further evidence how there is really no easy way anyone could have ever kept the cow clean of debris. I bent up a new cow torque box panel for the rear, so here's a picture of that welded in. Here's the new dash just sitting there looking pretty and being studied. It looks way better than the old one, but of course, I've said that already about everything I'm pulling from the other Ranchero to put into this one. Well, we're 30 days in and we're still having fun. Yeah, sure, you betcha. I spent the past couple of evenings getting the rest of the cow bits cleaned up and welded back in. That's looking good. I have a couple of little connector pieces to clean up that connect the fender aprons where they meet the cow. I'll weld them in shortly. Next, I cleaned up the replacement dash of its old paint, getting it down to bare metal. I decided to spray some paint on it underneath to keep it from rusting. The factory never painted under the dash, saving every penny they could, but it could use it, so I gave it 2 pennies worth. My Mustang parts came in from National Parts Depot today. The cow pieces, I can already see won't work. The front fender apron to tackle the old rotten battery tray, I think I can make that work. The 63 Falcon battery tray sits rather high on the passenger fender apron, and I want something closer to the 65 style battery location. This will get the battery lower and tucked into the fender apron a bit. The battery tray relocation was pretty easy. I started by cutting out the rot, slicing and dicing the opening until the new panel fit in the hole. Next, I drilled a bunch of holes on the edge of the panel for spot welds. Someone before me had taken a cutting torch to the shock tower so they could grease the upper control arm bushing. I cleaned up that hole, which worked out great, to get a long pair of ice strips and, to clamp on both sides of the panel. The section behind the headlight on the core support was slightly different between the Mustang and the Falcon, so I had to make a false panel in front of it. It's pretty much invisible. I've been repairing the rocker noses for the past couple of days now. I sliced out the old parts yesterday and blasted the new Ranchero replacement parts. The Ranchero I shouldn't have cut up. I'm sounding like a broken record, I know. Anywho, I had to patch in a new top plate and a few smaller patches for the bottom of it. Once I had that done, I sprayed the inside of it with cold galvanizing and fit it into place and welded it in. I did the other side too, but I didn't take any pictures of that being done. It looks the same. Here we are after working a few days on the floor. As expected, the full-length driver's side panel fit really good, but the parts I got from Rock Auto, not so much. They'll need a lot of hammering to finesse them to fit, but I'm slowly twisting them into shape. I'm having to fabricate the entire rear section of the floor in the hidden section under the bed. I'm using metal Steve had left over from a wagon he parted out to patch his sedan delivery. Between that and a few parts off the bed or Ranchero, it's looking pretty good. I gashed my back a few times on these braces doing that. I kind of kept wondering to myself, I wonder if my tetanus shots are up to date. Nope, probably not. Gene came back again to help, and I used him as my mock-up for the big block Chevy motor I'm planning to put into this thing someday. Just kidding. Gene has been a godsend. He really is doing stuff that otherwise would have been taking me away from all this fabrication work, so I'll forever be appreciative of his help. Thank you, Gene. I spent the evening welding in the rest of the driver's side floor. Excellent quality piece. I'll weld in the passenger rear floor tomorrow. That's going to be the worst piece because it doesn't fit as well as the other side. I mean, it fits, but it's going to need a lot of tweaking. Today I worked on the gas cap and fuel filler. After watching fuel burp and spill every time I fill up my Falcon wagon, I decided I'm going to copy Jeff and install an early Jaguar cap to this Ranchero. They not only work, but they also look good on these round body Falcons. Unlike Jeff's wagon, you'll see that in some future video, Lord willing. I didn't get the little bucket from the Jaguar body where the filler cap sits, so I had to fabricate that on my own. This took me about 6 hours to fabricate and get it all installed, but other than doing some metal finishing and a little body work and adding the drain tube, it's pretty much all done. Something to note, there is a lead seam on this upper panel just behind the gas cap and above the taillight. Jeff ran into it when he cut the hole in for his. Knowing this, I went slightly forward, I'm guessing maybe about an inch from where his is, and luckily I missed the lead seam on mine. Ryan from the club stopped by today and took some pictures of Gene and I working. I'm trying to document this as best I can, but action shots? Nope, not happening. Here's Gene still flexing his turbo torch and grinder in the engine bay, and I'm plug welding that ill-fitting passenger side rear floor panel. Been doing a lot of final welding on the floor and grinding stuff down, but sort of wanted to take a couple of days off from all the pounding on the metal. My body is really starting to complain. As a change of pace, I've been working on the rotted shifter hump. As you can see in the patch piece I've welded to the hump, it still needs a little work. I'll use the Accelerant torch and heat it up and pound it into shape. It won't be perfect, but it won't be rusty. I also sat the seats in and stared at them a bit. They needed some seat risers to support the inner rear legs. They were floating a bit. Took a while, but figured something creative out. I also welded in the threaded plates for the seats and the seat belts. If you look closely, you'll notice I used those shock tower braces Gene cut out for me and made the seat risers out of those. One of them has a VIN number stamped into it. Next week, we're coming up on 2 months working on this. My 4-month timeline is looking highly doubtful. With the floor all welded in, I decided to put some flavor of Rust-Oleum down to cover it all, and then spread some seam sealer everywhere I could. I'm kind of blown away how good it all looks compared to how it was just a couple of months ago. Did I do all this? No, Gene helped a lot too. Thanks, Gene. I think I'm going to close this episode after welding the dash back in and giving it and the new cowl a coat of etching primer. It's a solid truck again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget to like and subscribe and come back for the next video in the series. I didn't get as far as I had hoped per video, but I think probably I can get this at least done through its first phase of build, and probably 2 more videos, 3 more maybe. So we'll see how it goes. But thanks for watching. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, throw me some comments. Say I hate it, say I like it, say something. Alrighty, thanks, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.